Yo, people, welcome to another episode of the Elevated Audio Podcast. It's been a minute. Glad to be back. I'm your host, Raj Elevate. This is my co-host.
Chris Audio. Yeah, this been been too long.
Facts, man. And we got a fire hot topic that I know especially the producers out there is gonna feel and dig. I'll just go right in with it and let y'all know we're talking about our favorite samples. To us, mine's not in any particular order. I don't know if yours is in any particular.
No, I mean I didn't even necessarily pick like my favorite, right? Like when we talked about it, when we talked about, we were gonna do this topic, I was just like, I just obviously we're just talking about there were like a couple that like just really jumped out, just because like stuff I had been listening to that week, you
Yeah.
know. But then I started thinking about it, and a few more like kind of came to mind. So I guess this would be like, at least for me, the samples that really that were like the first ones that really popped for me of like I love how they flipped the sample.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the best songs, although the songs are pretty good too. But you just hear it like, damn, yeah. I mean, I don't want to get give too much
So
reason, but like
before we get into the ones we actually yeah, the ones we want to talk about, what is it about sampling that as a producer, what is it about sampling that intrigues you so much, and what do you love about it? The art of sampling as a whole.
well, I love the idea of taking something older of like, or not even that old, but something that's a different genre altogether and kind of recreating it into something else. I think there's something innovative about that. You
Oh yeah,
know, I think it's a
definitely.
beautiful thing.
Yeah, it came from the streets, man. Like we didn't really have much to work with, so like we took quote unquote rich people's music, like rock and whatever it is, found the break beat in it, sampled it, and just hip hop, man. That's
Yeah,
hip hop shit.
exactly. And we were talking about this, before we start recording. That I think is kind of dope is that sometimes all producers will get this, but like you'll hear a song and you like maybe it takes a second, but like pretty quickly you're like, man, I recognize that sample. Like, oh, that's that song, blah 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 blah. You
Yeah.
know, um, or other times you're just like, man, that whatever that sample is, that's kind of dope. Let me look into this. Let me find out what they sampled because that sounds crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or my favorite, my personal favorite is um, when you're making beats and you're digging through samples and you come across a sample that you recognize the song, that you're like oh shit, like
That
I
is.
I I didn't know that they sampled this for that song,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I think it's so dope. I don't know.
Yeah, nah, that's awesome. I love the art, man, and just being able to intertwine all the genres is it's such a beautiful thing. And I feel like a lot of genres do it. Like you'll hear some hip hop and some like other genre songs, but I feel like hip hop is so inclusive because you just take from everything, man. There'd be like a Tibetan ancient flute. You can use that as a
Yeah.
sample, or you can take like Shaka Khan. Um, okay, well I said it already, so
No,
I'm
no, no. I mean, but before you give like your first one, I think that you're making a good point. Where I think that's a beautiful part about hip hop is that I think it's like almost like low key, like this like little like competition like between producers. It's not really a competition, but it's almost like I want to find the samples that like no one else is like touching. So it's like when Kanye first came out and got big or whatever, and Just Blaze was producing at that time, and Dilla, I'm rocking J Dilla T today,
all right.
Ninth Wonder, all these people, the old, they're flipping like the old like soul samples, right?
Yeah,
And it's like some producers like, ah man, that's
Brown.
that's played out. Everyone's doing that. Everyone's done that, which look, I'm always gonna do that because that's my shit. But there is kind of like this element of like, nah, I'm gonna branch out, broaden my horizons, and sample some like you said, like Tibetan flute or whatever. I'm gonna sample some polka music. I'm gonna sample whatever. Um, that's something that like as hip hop producers, like like no genre is safe, right? Like, like, hey, you know what? If that sample sounds dope,
It's
I'm
all
gonna use
fair
it.
game, man.
I'm gonna flip that shit regardless of what genre it is, you know?
Yeah,
So that's an aspect that just like it's a beautiful thing, you know?
yeah. But I even look, bro. I even look at sampling like, you can go outside and find like a fountain and sample, like take your phone and record the fountain, the stream, the sound of it, and that's sampling as well, right there. And it's just this is a beautiful thing, man. Being able
Yeah.
to use these elements. But okay, so I'm gonna get my first one. I said Shaka Khan. I can't say Shaka Khan without bringing up Kanye's beat, Through the Wire. But
Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
came up with. Um, that's like one. Obviously, I think that was one of my first exposures. Being exposed to Kanye was that track, and yeah, that beat just always stuck with me. So that's the first one I'm bringing up.
That's a good one. I actually did not have that on my list. Not that I didn't think of it,
Why?
but I love that one. But obviously, I love that one. Um, I think we talked about this on like one of our first episodes of like how we started making music. I think that's something we talked about. I feel like it's a conversation we had at least
Mhm.
where like I remember exactly where I was like when Through the Wire came out, and I was like, I don't know, I was like 17, 18, or something like
Yeah,
that.
we talk about.
And I had already been making beats and stuff like that. And I had already been making music. But like when I heard that and I heard how he flipped that and made a song out of it and everything, I was like, yep, yep, like that. That right there, like that's
Mhm,
what I want to do with my life. Like that right
mhm.
there. What he
Yeah,
just did right there and made this song with that sample and the way he did it, that right there. That's what I
that,
want to do. That's how I want to spend my life is
yeah,
doing shit like
that
that.
was the
You
aha
know?
moment right there for you.
Yeah, that's you know what? I was gonna say a different one first, but since you brought Through the Wire, I actually had one that's on the same album.
Okay.
So on the Kanye song, obviously because we're talking about Kanye West, on the song Spaceship, he samples Marvin Gaye, Distant Lover, and I remember like I kind of recognized it when I even heard the song, but I just happened to be like, I guess it just didn't like occur to me, right? When I listened to the song, well, I'm sure a lot of people were like, yeah, duh, I recognized the sample, when I heard, but whatever, it didn't occur to me because I listen to Marvin Gaye, but I don't listen to it like that, you know.
Mhm.
But I happened to just be listening to Marvin Gaye, a couple months after College Dropout came out, and I was listening to Distant Lover, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's Spaceship right there." Because he uses a few different parts, and it's all like
Yeah.
within the first minute of the song. And I was just like, it wouldn't have like occurred to me to use those specific parts, you know. But yeah, I just thought that was really dope how he chopped that up, and flipped that, and and obviously the song he made with it was it's probably one of my favorite songs on that album anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really good.
Yeah. One I like since we're in the Kanye realm. Otis is a pretty ill one too. The Otis sample,
Yeah,
James Brown.
yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, another one that I had thought of that he did was also obviously it's a famous song. Obviously Otis is a famous song too, but the song "Good Life" with T Pain, they sampled Michael Jackson PYT on that.
Mm.
And you know, the reason I even bring it up is I think there's kind of like this. I think there's kind of like this assumption that like especially when he first came out, everything was like sped up soul samples. Everything was sped up, sped up, sped up.
Mhm.
But PYT the tempo was kind of fast on that song anyway, so they actually slowed that one down to use that. And I think they only use like one little part of it. It's like that's it, But I thought that was kind of cool. They just made a beat around that.
That's all you need sometimes. I think Timbaland was talking about that beat he made for Jay-Z. Forgot the name of it. Go and brush your shoulders off. That one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
They're off show, yeah. And he said that thing is only like I think like one one instrument and like a bass and some drums. Like it's
Yeah,
literally
it's like actually, I didn't even think about it, but now I'm like thinking, hearing the beat in my head right now. Like there isn't a whole lot going on there.
Yeah, and it's dope. It's a
And
dope.
it is dope. Yeah, I mean,
Nah,
whatever. Like
it's a hit. It was a hit.
you probably made that shit in like 15 minutes.
Probably. And honestly, man, you're a producer. You know that that's the when the best shit comes, bro. And like that inspiration, quick in the moment. A lot of people think like creating whatever it is like this long, drawn out process. And I guess sometimes it could be to an extent if you're trying to map it out in your head. But when you're in the moment and you're in the flow, especially with music, like it's just that instantaneous spark of like excitement you get when you hit that perfect note or get that perfect
Yeah.
chord progression or whatever it is, and it's so quick, man. It's like
Let me ask you a question because you make beats also. I mean, I know that you're first an MC, but I know you, but you also make beats.
yeah,
Um, have you ever been like at work or you're out somewhere and you get an idea for a beat in your head, right? And you kind of like I don't know if you've ever done this, but like I used to like go to like run to the bathroom real quick and like hum like the melody in like in a voice memo,
yo,
right? Just so I have like a basis of the beat, in my head, or have it saved so that way I don't mess it up later, right? How many times, how often do you like make that beat? I'm sorry. How often do you like get that idea and then you get home and you start making that beat and you're just like, damn, this beat came out just how I heard it in my head.
rarely ever.
I think it's happened like maybe 0.1% of the
so
time. It's
so
usually why.
look at my so if you went through my phone memos, I got like I'll get hit with inspirational like quotes and just like life stuff, but half of it is our melodies,
Yeah.
melodies and rhymes. How many of those melodies I actually took and made into a beat? Not many. Not many. The inspiration comes and I capture it, then it's like I feel like I start thinking about it too much, and when I go to make the beat, I just want to be in that moment. That moment, I'm making the beat, and I kind of like
Yeah.
put my idea on the back burner, which is something I actually want to work on. Like find something like that, like a melody I came up with, and actually create it. And you know what it is too? If I come up with the melody, it's tough to find a sample to go with it because I could use regular instruments or whatever and play them, but it probably sound like shit because
Yeah.
I'm not not a piano player or whatever player, But
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely something I want to work on too.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know,
Something about
but
like what you said a second ago was kind of interesting to me because it's true. You said that like sometimes the shit that you made like when you're talking about Timbaland before,
mm,
sometimes the shit that you make like in 10, 15 minutes is kind of like your best shit, honestly.
yeah,
Because when inspiration hits, that's it. Like that's when the best stuff comes, I mean, have there been beats where I spent like an hour or a couple hours making it? Yeah. Most of it's not my favorite shit that I've made, to be honest. So I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
So what else
So
you
what
got?
else? I
Oh,
got my next one was it's an Alchemist beat, and it's you probably know what it is as soon as I said Alchemist. It's to hold you down. Uh,
yeah, I mean that's one of his, I think that's probably his most like notable song, right? That he's
and
on
it has the
and
legend on it, Prodigy, So
yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
that was sampled from Al Cooper's Love Theme from The Landlord, and that sample just catches me, man. And
Yeah.
the chicks singing on it are just like,
Yeah,
they put
you're
that whole track,
confident. Yeah, yeah.
you know.
No, that song's dope. That whole album is pretty dope, actually. I used
And
to bump that a lot. But yeah, that's a good one actually.
I'm sure there's many more Alchemist joints. I just took one. My next one's like more underground, but you go ahead and put out your next one that you
All
want.
right. Yeah, so this next one that I have is it's a beat that was produced by Just Blaze and it's a really really well-known song.
Place.
Um but the sample is from Tom Brock, There's Nothing in This World, right? And this is one of those things where Like if you know what song I'm talking about, anyone who's listening, if you know what song I'm talking about, you already know which song, you know what it is, because it's so like, yeah, like this is one of those where I heard the sample and I didn't know that it was the sample for this song, you know. So I just started listening to the sample, you know, to try to work on something, and I was like, oh shit, this is girls, girls, girls. And if you hear it, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful, man. And it's like, ah, man. And that's one of my favorite beats on Blueprint. So like when I heard that sample, not knowing that it was the sample for that song, bro, I about lost my shit.
Yeah, that feeling when you realize that, like, oh, this is that, you know,
Yeah.
that's for
No,
yeah.
it's the ultimate, like as a producer, it's the ultimate oh shit moment. Like better than like, that's better than like, oh, I made this fire beat. Oh, that the verse that you dropped on my beat is fire. Like this is better than any of that. You know?
Uh-huh.
There's like a
Yeah.
rush, you know? So yeah, that's definitely one of them. That was probably the first one that came to mind when we decided to do this topic.
So that he was saving that like just for the right moment.
Bro, yeah.
So my next one is from Jedi Mind Tricks, more
Mhm.
underground. Uh this track called Eye Against Eye, which is like, man, they don't say when I was put out here, but it's like when I first really got in underground hip hop. Well, I can't say that because I first got into underground hip hop with like Cassidy, and that's more like gangster rap. Jedi Mind Tricks is more like just underground gritty type rap. So when I started listening to them many years ago, I would say, man, this track is probably 13, 14 years ago. But yeah, it's Eye Against Eye, and it's by Carl. It's sampled from Carl Jader, and the song's called "What Are You Doing for the Rest of Your Life."
I don't know that sample at all.
Yeah, man, you gotta look it up later on, bro. It's. Wait, hold on, maybe
Look that up.
I don't know if you can hear it through here, but so first they play the actual sample, then they play the beat. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I'm just listening. Oh, that's dope.
That's crazy,
That's
man.
cool. I love how they did that.
Yeah, I love how they play it. Like they play that part and then they transition into the actual hip hop song with that part that they
Yeah,
use. And so you could see it in action. It's amazing.
no, that's dope.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's the art of sampling,
Yeah, man.
you know. Who else you got?
All right, so Freeway, when he so way after, you know, Philadelphia Freeway and, you know, What We Do and all that, he I don't know if he's still with Rhymesayers, but he at least signed with Rhymesayers for a period of time.
Freeway?
Yeah.
I thought he was uh what the heck was that name of their little crew?
State Property.
Yeah.
No, but his solo shit.
And he went with Rhyme Sayers? Wow.
Yeah. So he put out an album probably like 2009, I want to say 2009. He put out an album with Jake One called Stimulus Package. And if I mean, obviously, if you're a producer listening to this, you already know. But Jake One is like a massively like underrated producer. Like he is super dope. Like with the samples and just he's just like top to bottom, just a really really solid producer. Like really good.
Yeah.
But he flipped Rick James, Mary Jane
Rick
for a
James.
song called "She Makes Me Feel All Right." And at first, I heard this. I was listening to the song. And I was like, "All right, this is cool. This sounds, you know, the sample sounds familiar, or whatever." I don't know why it didn't occur to me like right away. But then after like a couple times hearing the song, I was like, "Of course, like this is fucking Mary Jane," you know. But yeah, he did his thing on that sample because
Mm.
that's another one that's fire. Highly recommend.
Okay.
And
I
now that I
got
told you that, you'll recognize it like right away. Just cause I mean, you probably recognize it anyway, but you know.
yeah.
I take a little while to recognize these things.
The next one I got is with Jedi Mind Tricks again. It's a track called Heavenly Divine, and it's around the same time frame as the last one I was just talking about. It's sampled from Andante, I think is the name of the group. Yo Yo Ma and Bobby McFerrin. See, that's stuff I would never know about my whole life, but that's what hip hop sampling does. It expands these barriers that
Yeah.
just take you on a journey down so many different walks of life and genres and sounds. Nothing like
It's
it.
kind of crazy that you say that you bring that up because you're right. Like it opens up like a lot of it opens up your mind to like a lot of different artists, from the past that maybe kind of
Yeah,
precede your time.
yeah,
Like we're both born in the '80s, so I mean, it's
yeah.
like there's a lot of great music that came out in like the '50s, '60s, '70s. That we don't even, if it wasn't even honestly, if it wasn't even for these samples, like we may not even be like exposed to it. To be honest with you,
Mhm.
and I remember. You remember a magazine called Scratch?
Yeah, it sounds familiar. I don't think I've ever
Like
seen it, but
double XL. Like I have like the whole like I think they only did like one like you know I don't know what you call it not a season. What do you call it? Like with magazines,
issue,
editions. I don't know.
issue,
I don't
issue, an issue.
issues, right? So like they only released like 12 of them or something like that, and then I guess they stopped making them. Anyway, as like a hip hop producer, it's like there was just gem after gem in this magazine. Honestly, it was like amazing. Anyway, so they interviewed Just Blaze in one of the issues, and anyway, I'll really abbreviate the story. Long
Mhm.
story short, like I want to say it was Song Cry. I can't remember what song it was. It was a big song that he produced for Jay Z that he was basically saying that like based on like how they cleared the sample and what like the owners of the copyright wanted, he basically made like no money on the song, right?
Mm.
But the song was huge, so somebody made money on that song, right? So anyway, he's telling a story about how he's like in a limo or something like that, and the limo driver like recognized him and was like, you're just Blaze, right? Then you produced Songcry, and he's basically telling him how like the owners of that copyright basically ran like a youth center, like a community center or something like that. That was like it was they were gonna close it down basically, but the money from that royalty kind of supported that community center to stay open.
Mm.
So he was just like in the article, he's basically talking about like, even though we didn't really get as much out of that song as we would have liked, at least it still served like a good purpose,
Mm.
making that song and using that sample.
Mhm.
So, you know, anyway, I don't know. You made what something you said made me think of that. I don't know why,
Yeah,
but
Now, I was talking about the vastness of sampling, man, and like
yeah,
what the doors it opens. And I was just reading here, hip hop sampling was one of the foundations of hip hop and emerged in the 1980s. So that just makes me like even more proud of being
yeah,
born in the 80s, man. Just like knowing that's around that, and like you just said, there's definitely a lot of beautiful, amazing things that came before that and after that. I'm not taking anything away from that, but like just knowing that things like the art form of sampling came around the time we were born is amazing, amazing feeling.
well, also you want to also keep in mind that like let's just say Jay Z used the sample of like let's say he did a song with a sample of like some artist who, and this is usually the case, whose like best years were like in the 60s or 70s or whatever. Guess what? Like if that Jay Z song is a hit song, which like every Jay song is basically, um, that original artist, I promise you, their streaming numbers spike like crazy. Like after that song comes out,
Right? Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
people like you and me, or like even people younger than us, will
Yeah.
be like, oh, I don't know what that is, but let me look into it. Oh, it's the Doors or whatever, like you
Yeah.
know, all of a sudden they start listening to that and they're like, shit, I kind of like this. This is kind of cool, and then they start listening to their whole catalog, you know.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
mean, it kind of benefits. It's not just like, oh, there's this one song and they flip that sample. Like, nah, it actually benefits the sampled artist. Maybe not quite as much, but to a pretty good extent, you know?
So since we're talking about sampling artists, how how do you think like that affects, because I know there's a lot of like laws behind, taking somebody, like especially a famous person, like say if I sample somebody, I'm not really known like that, and if I take somebody's
Right.
sample and it might be a little noticeable, I might not have many issues. But like if somebody like a Jay-Z or whoever sampled, another big artist, um how much of an impact do you think that's had on the industry of like, or do you think it's had, I think I already know your answer, but do you think it's had a negative impact on just music in general, like people taking, or just the concept of taking, somebody else's art and kind of repurposing it uh, to be hip
I
hop?
think that I think people who kind of disparage it, I don't think they fully understand what they're talking about, if you want my honest opinion. I think people who disparage sample producers, quote unquote, I think they don't understand that if you take out sampling, you're kind of eliminating like 90% of all hip hop ever created, first of all. So if you're a hip hop fan, you better be appreciative of sampling in the first place. First of all.
Facts. That's
Second of
facts.
all, people don't talk about how many times like we'll take the example to like rock music. How many like famous songs, like how many hit songs were covers of previous hit songs? You know what I'm saying? Like that happens all the time in rock music, And honestly, there's sampling in R&B, there's sampling in pop, There's, you know, and then you also have other artists that flat out just took music from other artists, and we don't want to talk about that,
It's a whole nother episode.
that's a whole other episode. But I think I think overall, I think the artist sampling has been a beneficial thing overall. Whether people who you know are not proponents of that, whether they like it or not. Um,
Because then you have the other side that are like, oh, well, that's not original music. I only like original music that people create their own guitar riffs and their own bass lines and whatever the case may be.
and I don't shit on any of that. Like that's awesome. If you're able to do all that, cool. But let's be honest, like especially now, you look at like the dudes who are putting out like quote unquote like original production. They're hitting like three notes and looping it up and
And
putting an 808 on it.
they're in sample
You know?
packs already.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and so you're not being necessarily creative either. And I got beats like that too, like,
Yeah.
so I mean, I don't, and you know what? If you can sell beats like that, cool. Do you, man? Like, I'm not here to shit on it. So
Being
don't,
creative, they're just not being. Nobody's really 110% original. There's really nothing new under sun. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. No ideas. Yeah, like not said.
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, so
And we're producers. We're all pretty much guilty of that, but it's nothing to be ashamed of. You know what I mean? You get a sample
no,
back.
there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Somebody might have that snare, and I use this snare too, but I tweak the pitch a little bit, or I put more reverb on it, whatever case
Right.
may be. You know?
Look, man, if you want to if people want to give extra credit to certain producers or music creators because they do, they play this instrument. Like you look at dudes like Justice League, for example. Like those dudes are incredible. And
Yeah.
as far as my understanding is, those dudes are all like classically trained like musicians.
Mm.
So they're playing most of that from my understanding. I could be totally off on that. So anyone listening, if I'm wrong, you can just brush off
Drop
everything I'm
a
saying.
comment.
Yeah, put a comment or
Wanna hear
DM me, tell me I'm an idiot or whatever. But as far as my understanding is, those guys are classically trained musicians
Yeah.
and they put together all that stuff. That's why a lot of Rick Ross's shit sounds like a fucking orchestra, because
Yes,
those
it
guys
is.
probably played in orchestras, those guys know their shit, And I don't sit here as like I consider myself in more of like the lane of like the Jay Dilla, Ninth Wonder,
Yeah.
Madlib type lane,
Right. Yeah.
Um, and I don't sit there and look at people who play instruments and being like, well, no, that's not hip hop because hip hop started with like sampling. I'm like, oh, it's stupid. Like if it's
It's
good,
like
it's good, man. Like
everything evolves, some things,
yeah,
you know, everything changes. Some things not for the better, but yeah, I don't
yeah.
hate on none of it.
Look, all this stuff, like you said, everything evolves, and things usually the way that they evolve is it kind of just branches out, right? That doesn't mean that like okay, hip hop started here, and then like okay, this like dialect or like this a subgenre of hip hop kind of started here,
Yeah,
then here, then here, and here. That doesn't mean that like whatever. Let's say you're a boom bap producer. That doesn't mean that like oh, just because shit evolved this way, it doesn't mean that like there's no market for boom bap anymore. Like no, people still listen to that.
yeah.
There's
There
like
will
this
always be a niche for what you and I do: underground, boom
right,
bop, hip hop. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Always. Even if things turn trappy or super emo or super country hip hop, whatever it is, there's
whatever
always,
it is.
you know, we'll always
Yeah,
be here. Like the hip hop purist will always,
yeah.
well,
I mean, and things evolve because whatever, like
the nature
styles
of reality.
change, genres and tastes change, and and on top of that, people just see that oh, there's a market for like this little style here. Cool. That doesn't mean that there isn't a market for all the other ones too.
Right.
So I
Right.
mean, like as someone who samples, I know that there's always going to be people who really mess with the samples, who really, really,
Of course.
and that's what they want to listen to, like that style. So that's cool, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's been times where I've been like, man, I'm just turning into that old hip hop head, that are like telling the kids like, yo, listen to some Rock Hammer,
I
check
know.
this shit out. But that's who I am, and there's other people like me, I'm not alone with that. So if you're listening
No,
out there and you're like us, we got each other, we got a community.
exactly. We're a much smaller community now, but
Yeah,
that's
because
cool.
we're the old hip hop guys now.
But you know what? There's kind of like a charm to it, to be honest with you, because like when I would go like on the road with Ben and Split, right?
Yeah,
Like every time we went to a town for like the first time, right?
yeah,
Like we went to like Asheville, North Carolina, or we go to like not no, not really in Charlotte, but
mm,
certain most places that we go,
mm,
there's always like that one or two people that come up to us after the show and be like, "Oh man, I really love what you guys do." Blah blah blah. I really didn't think that people were setting up hip hop shows that were like this anymore. That people actually care about the lyrics and all. There's always so what I mean. So there's kind of like a charm to it because it is like I know it's a niche thing and people make me hear that as like a bad thing.
yeah,
But if you're a niche thing, that means you're kind of like a specialty that people can't get anywhere else.
yeah.
Right?
It's
That
like
people they
yeah.
feel like they can't get anywhere else.
It's like they're discovering like some ancient dinosaur species, and they're like, "Oh, that's still around." Like that.
Kind of. I mean, that's
That's
kind of what it is. Yeah, maybe what I'm saying is kind of like a fancy rationalization to feel better about
I'm
it.
just trying to relate it to something, even though it's completely understandable. And
Yeah.
I don't mind being that guy. Like you said, there'll always be people like us, always be a niche, always be a market
Yeah.
for it. Even if it's getting smaller, I don't know if it's getting smaller as time goes
Yeah.
on. It might be growing. We just not don't really
I mean,
know.
vinyl sales have gone up in the last 10 years.
Right? Yeah, shit
So
like
I don't know if that's just like a hipster thing. They're just like collecting or people actually like listen on
that.
records. I don't know. I mean, I don't
Uh,
know. Dude.
and you got to think, man. I'm sure there's kids in their 20s. I call them kids now. So
These young
there's
business snappers.
young young boys in like their 20s, in their late teens, or maybe even earlier than that, maybe younger than that, that are like interested in the classic hip hop, and do want to be involved in the culture
Yeah.
of the actual culture of hip hop, and the elements and sampling and actual lyricism and everything. So
Well,
we're
I look at it like things tend to be kind of cyclical, right? Um, and I think that we're kind of hitting, how would I say this? We're kind of hitting like a tipping point, right? Where even like younger music fans are recognizing that the music that's being made and marketed to them is
yeah,
kind of shitty. You know,
Yeah.
it's called what
Yeah.
it is. It's
Yeah.
very redundant and it's kind of empty, you know.
Very
And
empty.
there's a lot of younger people, young. I know, like as like older hip hop heads, we kind of shit on the younger fans because they're
Yeah.
like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But guess what? There's a lot of younger fans who are really, really discerning, and maybe, and I interact with like a lot of people like on Twitter about like hip hop and shit like that, and I
Like,
kind of I kind of
like
shit on like these younger
Talib.
artists,
You getting arguments like Talib Kweli?
kind of a little bit, not quite to that extent, He's a little more those
He,
conversations are those conversations I see him having are a little more flammable.
he be getting into it, man. But anyway,
I don't go that far with it, but I'm trying to like I try to like I've kind of like started to shift this way of like, you know what, just because it's a younger cat, like, and he listens to, whatever, insert the name of younger or newer artists in the blank, that doesn't mean that they don't appreciate the other shit too,
right,
Maybe
right,
they just have a little bit more of like an
yeah,
open mind on it
yeah.
because they're growing up with both of them.
And
You
why
know,
can't you like both? There's some new stuff
yeah,
that
that's
I'm
the
like,
thing.
okay, okay, that's that's not like you know.
Like I don't identify
Sorry,
with that. Like I personally
right.
don't identify with that. Of like, I don't understand how someone could be a fan of like boom bap and a fan of like mumble rap, for example. I just don't identify with it. Look, there's probably a lot of music fans who are slightly more open minded than I am. Who
Yeah,
listen to both and can
yeah,
appreciate aspects of both.
yeah.
Um,
Like I can
so,
appreciate certain things like that. Um, there's one Travis Scott song. I don't even know the name. Goosebumps, whatever. Like that's a
yeah,
cool track. But I wouldn't be like, yo, that's fire. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't
yeah.
talk about that like I talk about some underground hip hop shit. I wouldn't talk about it with that. I'd be like, okay, that's cool. That's
You know what it is? I also get like a little discouraged sometimes, like not like super discouraged or anything,
every time you
but
turn on
like,
the radio.
well, yeah, kind of, but more so because when I turn on the radio, it's like I know what I'm kind of know what I'm gonna get. I know what I'm gonna get with that. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I know that I'm gonna be disappointed with that. So I'm not turning on the radio thinking like, oh man, maybe there's gonna be this new fire boom bap song. Like, nah, I'm not expecting that. But when I hear like a newer artist or like a mumble rap quote unquote artist do like a freestyle or something like that, and I'm just like, bro, this guy can actually spit.
Yeah,
Like who can actually rap? Like, and honestly, most of them can, you know. But like,
they
I don't,
choose.
I don't know if people still use SoundCloud, but there was an artist, I can't remember who it was. It was like a mumble rap artist who he said it like in an interview. He's like, look, I can put um like I can, put like a whatever song on my SoundCloud and it gets 5 million, listens. I can do like a lyrical song and it gets like, 50,000 listens. So if, if they're getting my point is if they're getting rewarded to make a certain style,
Yeah.
why the fuck would you make the other style?
Even
You
Jay
know what
Z
I'm
said
saying?
that shit, Doug. Fucking Jay Z said the same shit. He was like, "Yo, I dumbed it down just because I know." He said it out his words. I forgot what interview or where, but he said it, bro. He was like, "Yeah, I dumb it down because that's what sells." Straight up,
But it's true. It's
That's
true though.
Jay
And
Z.
like, and you know what? It's easier for us to be like to kind of like shit on those artists who do that. But like you and I have a job. You know what I mean? If you're making music and that is your full-time job, guess what? You're gonna go with the style that's making you more money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Like if you're running a restaurant and you are really passionate about the pork chop that you guys make and you think it's really good, but like no one's buying the pork chop, everyone's just buying the burgers. Guess what? You're probably gonna stop ordering that pork chop to cook. You're probably just gonna focus on burgers, right?
That's why restaurants change their menus all the time. Like what's
Look,
selling?
all the restaurants have most of the restaurants, the well-run restaurants, I should say. They can look at how much they're selling of each item, and the more successful restaurants I've worked at, they look at even if that item was only on the menu for like a month, they're like, well, no one's buying this item. Guess what? We're wasting space in our freezer or cooler or whatever storing this,
Yeah.
and we're wasting money buying it because guess what? This whole month only like 5 of them sold. So you know what? Let's kick that off and we'll find a new item to replace it that maybe is a little bit more popular. Saying, I mean, if you're making music and you make a little bit of boom bap music, and you make a little bit of like trap music, and you make a little bit of like, and let's say you sing a little bit too, and you make like a couple R&B tracks or whatever, and the ones that you're getting the most love for and the most purchases and streams for is the trap music. Guess what? You're gonna probably start focusing on making more trap music. No,
Yeah, right. And it's
man,
just that's just business, man. It's
that's
supply
just
and
business.
demand. It's a
It's
simple concept of business.
it's
And it really depends
it's just
how
being smart.
yeah, and it depends you how much you value the business aspect. Because all right, so say you have somebody that he has a 9 to 5. He's making 6 figures with his 9 to 5, and is rapping, like he just does it for fun. He's not really gonna care what anybody says about it. But like you just said, if somebody's
If it's
making a
your
living from
livelihood,
it and has to eat from it, then they're gonna be more they're gonna pay more attention to what people like, and they're gonna do
right?
more of that.
That was actually something that I read in like an interview with Alchemist. I think it might have been in Scratch also. Actually, I think about it.
Yeah.
But he said like, don't let like don't make a certain style, like make the music that you want to make, right? And if you're trying to sell beats, don't try to just make a certain style because you think it's going to sell more. Because then what's going to happen is you're only going to start making that style because it's selling more. And if it's not the style that you want to be making, then what are you doing? You're not going to be into it. Because then that style is going to totally dictate the music that you're making.
So you're saying if you like making beats a certain way, don't stop making them a certain way, but
Don't stop making them a certain way, or I think what he was trying to get at is like, don't let, just because a certain style is what's selling but it's not like the style that you want to make, don't let that dictate everything about what you're doing. Like if you
right.
gotta like
Don't just
if you
stop doing what you're doing and just do what's in.
right, like if you gotta make, put it like this, if you're relying on your beats as like your main income, but you're selling beats that you don't give a shit about, like the music at all, then like you need to have another income stream. You need to like work a full-time job or hustle or whatever, because you need to be able to focus on the music you give a shit about too. And if you like making trap beats, cool. If that's what you're passionate about, cool. But if let's say whatever style you make, if it's not the popular style and it's not the popular beats that are going to be selling, you know, um, I mean, that's fine too. Just make the best music. I think his point was just make the best music you can possibly make, and don't let like a style dictate your
Yeah.
entire style and your income and the direction of your career.
Yeah, and I completely wholeheartedly agree with that. Don't don't just cater to what people want. You still
Yeah,
have to fulfill what you love to do, and
right.
your what
Have
interests
you
you.
I thought about this a few minutes ago because I was looking at my list here of like samples. Have you heard like any song where you heard like it's a song that used the same sample that you used before, and you were just like, man, they did it better?
Like a sample that I use? No, I've never heard it.
You never like made a beat with a sample that you were like, then you heard it on another song and you were like, yeah,
No,
they
because
killed
like the samples I use are so obscure that like nobody knows
it.
about
So
them.
no one's ever used it.
Like I get like this chick in her bedroom just like singing and shit and playing the piano.
Yeah.
And I'll take her off YouTube. Yeah,
Oh, that's kind of cool, actually. I should have thought of that.
but it sounds like it's happened to you.
What? Oh yeah, no, it definitely has happened to me plenty of times.
Do you
Like
remember the track? Do you remember the
I
song?
made a beat, huh?
Do you remember the track?
Yeah, of course. I made a beat with the artist is Rose Royce, and the song is "Love Don't Live Here Anymore." It's a
Mm,
kind of a famous song, actually.
yeah.
But on Fonte from Little Brother, on his first solo album, he has a song called I think it's called like "Not Here Anymore." But Ninth Wonder used that same sample, and I heard that song and immediately recognized the sample and was like, I'm never gonna play my beat that I did with the same sample. I'm never playing that beat for anybody because what he did with this is like not
You're
fair.
like, I can't touch that.
Like I can't even replicate it. Like what he did with it is so fire. Like
Man, now you make me. I want to hear it now. because yours might be, you're more critical of yourself than anybody. Yours might be up
Oh,
there.
the beat. You want to hear the beat that I made with it?
Yeah, yours might.
No, you know what it is? I kind of chopped it up a couple times and I looped up a certain part and like what what he did with it was a little more intricate, you know?
Yeah,
Like he really went like the next step with the chop, you know? So that's
right.
in my opinion, it's better.
But you say the next step. I mean, you got to get like a third party perspective, man, because somebody else might be like, "Yo, you were right there with him," or yours might even be better, dog.
Nah,
You
man.
never know.
Anyone who's just listening, I'm shaking my head right now. Because if you hear the Fonte song, you're gonna be like, there's no way someone else would have chopped this up better because this is fire. So I'm not saying that to like shit on myself. I'm saying that as like I'm just
I
saying it
got,
as like a
I
matter
got
of
to hear. I got
fact.
to hear.
Huh?
I got to hear it. I want to hear it. Maybe you could pull out the archives.
Yeah, I gotta find it. I'll send it to you.
Cool. So you got any more samples
What
you want to
else?
talk about? I know you got a list. Chris
Oh
always
man, I've been deleting stuff.
creates
I've
the
been
biggest
deleting
list.
stuff
Every
as we
time we got a
go.
topic, Chris' list will be like, I have like three things. Chris will have like
Yeah,
10, 15.
usually.
Damn, dude.
I mean, Through the Wire is one that
Yeah.
that's definitely a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, man, I mean, there's so many samples out there.
Yo.
We get this could be like a this could be like this could be every episode. Honestly, we could do an episode of like, hey, bring up three samples and that you want to talk about or whatever. Like we could do this every freaking episode. You know what I mean? Like I could sit here and I mean, just off the shit that I've released, I could put out 20 episodes of just talking about shit that I sampled and the beat that I made and
Yeah.
what we did with the song. Like
Huh?
so. I mean, it's kind of like an endless topic. So
No. All right. So let's wrap it up.
yeah, buddy.
You can find me on Rog Elevate Everything, ROGELEV8 at everything. The Chakra Therapy EP is about to drop. Definitely gonna be. I'm not gonna put a date on it, but it's definitely gonna be here before the end of the year. Maybe it might be a Christmas present. Maybe it might be a Thanksgiving present. Who knows? You know. But yeah, Chakra Therapy, the EP, and rogelevate.com for merch and updates, and join the mailing list to keep up with me. ROGELEV8 is in the number.com. Chris.
Yeah, any social media platform, Chris Audio. That's Chris with a KKHRIS Audio. Soundbreaking Music at LLC.com or Soundbreaking Music on basically every social media platform. I just want to say appreciate everyone who, because the last episode that we did was prior to 2021 Ozone Hip Hop Fest. I want to say I appreciate everyone who supported that event, especially now during, you know, we were kind of still dealing with pandemic and everything, and it looks like we're kind of getting to a really good place now. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm really grateful that for everyone who has been patient and understood that we had to make adjustments for that event. But I appreciate everyone who came out and supported all those artists because the artists are really really deserve it. And I
Yeah.
hope that everyone had a good time when they're out there. So, because as a fan, you guys also deserve to have a good show, for going out, given all the circumstances. Um, but yeah, I'm working on some music. I haven't really announced anything official yet, but definitely working on a few small projects that I'll, connect with us on social media, and I'm sure you'll see when that time comes when I'm ready to drop. Um, and then I guess I'll take this opportunity, even though I kind of did like a light announcement on social media.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't know, even though Ozone Hip Hop Fest is in Orlando, that's kind of where me and Raj connected, and we started making music and everything together. But I live in South Florida, in Miami. So Ben Phrases, my business partner, and I are starting a new annual festival, going to start in spring of 22 called South Florida Indie Fest. So it's going to kind of take on the same type of format as the Ozone Hip Hop Fest. So hopefully this first one goes really well. More information is going to get announced as they come available. But we're kind of aiming to make that kind of like the go-to hip hop event in South Florida, just like we're aiming to make the Ozone Hip Hop Fest the go-to hip hop event annually in Orlando. So that's kind of everything. That's a short story long of what's going on over there.
All right, no doubt. And make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Elevated Audio Podcast, on Instagram, on Facebook. Make sure you like the video, you comment. That's like, out of all of it, we want you guys to comment and really interact with us so we can interact with y'all. Let us know what you want to hear more of, what you don't want to hear more of. If you don't like us, if you think we're stupid, if you don't like my glasses, that's fine. Whatever. We just want to we just want to hear from you guys. And yeah. Till next time.
Peace.
Peace.